Back to the line. Last week, the University of New Mexico imposed a 30-day suspension without pay on football coach Bob Davie. UNM President Chowkey Abdallah announced the decision after several investigations into allegations that Mr. Davie was involved in the cover-up of a rape by one of his students, one of his athletes rather, and other crimes, and that he pushed injured players to practice and play, and that he used racial slurs. Coach Davie has denied the allegations and requested an appeal of the suspension, but the UNM Board of Regents denied that appeal this week. And Sophie, a law firm hired by UNM investigated found no specific evidence to back up the allegations, but they did find widespread issues inside the athletic department and inside the football program.
There was a ton of smoke.
That's right.
It's basically, yeah.
Good way to put it.
There was a ton of smoke. It seems to me that the university has a really delicate balance that they have to, balance. I don't know the end of that expression for some reason. On the one hand, they have employee protections, and Coach Davies obviously has a contract. On the other hand, they have to be concerned about the health and safety of their players, the environment that's been created within the athletic department, and the impact that that any allegations might have on their national affiliations. The sporting affiliations. And so there's a lot that has to be taken into account there. One of the things that I think is worth noting is that the law firm hired by the university didn't have prosecutorial power. So they couldn't force anyone to give testimony under oath. They couldn't compel the production of documents. And so they were necessarily limited in what they could do. Whereas if there had been a criminal allegation that that was then followed up on by police, that might have opened more doors.
That's a key distinction. I'm glad you put that out there, because those allegations, Giovanna, when you think about it, you've got allegations about retaliation against the young woman who made accusations against the player about rape in the dorm room, but she has since left New Mexico, and so there's a bit of a follow-up problem there. But what Sophie was getting at is perception issues, especially nationally for the university. And I'm wondering if you think about what you think about this, that Mr. Davie, of course, will have his day in court, so to speak, in this due process, perhaps, but maybe there isn't in this case. It's just sort of out there for us to make our own interpretations of, but there's no standard system to snake all this out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad, Sophie, you brought up the distinction, because it's not he's not in a criminal proceeding, right?
That's right.
So it's sort of the Board of Regents is doing what they can, but I'm just worried that this is all going to go back to business as usual very quickly here. In fact, I think the athletics department spokesperson said, "Oh, it's business as usual. We're going to spring, practice on Wednesday," kind of thing, and it just gets glossed over. I mean, he's got some bad press, and then it's back to business. I'm not sure, and it's not a very satisfactory process, it doesn't seem.
Good way to put it. Exactly. Andy, when you think about when you make Sports Illustrated, it changes, national publication, it changes a lot of things perception-wise, and the university has to make a change. Let me read you a quote from President Abdallah. Quote, "Behavior that violates our policies will not be tolerated. We will intensify our efforts to educate our campus community and change the culture of accountability within the university." That's okay, but you could almost layer that on any department on the university, not necessarily the football program. Do you see what I mean? So the question still is sort of out there. What then happens? Mr. Davie, it seems like the suspension is still under negotiation. When this is going to happen, doesn't want to interfere with spring football. So it seems like he's getting a bit of a pass here for all these allegations in some manner.
He could be, and you could argue that part of this is just to try to smooth things over. It got a lot of press, and then to try to say we took care of it.
Right.
The other side of that is I know that there's a handful of New Mexico journalists that are looking into this.
That's right.
And so I don't know that I can say that it's completely over yet. I think people are looking at records requests and really trying to get interviews done and try to find more about what's happening. So it's...
In fact, it was our Fourth Estate that brought this to light in the first place, almost a smoke part one. Now this is smoke part two, with the UNM investigation, when you really think about it. So I think you're right, there's going to be more that's going to come here. And Serge, my question is for the rest of the university. Once again, there's a lot of heartburn out there amongst some parts of the university that here goes the football program again in some way, kind of besmirching the entire situation. Your sense of it, I'm not asking you whether you're a fan of Mr. Davie or not, but your sense of it, you're at the law school. Does any smoke waft over campus there too?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think the sense is, from what I've been hearing and what I personally think, right, First of all, kudos to UNM for putting these results, making these results of these studies available online and having read them and seeing what they say.
Right.
As Sophie said, there's a lot of smoke. And to say, we'll have a 30-day suspension served, at your convenience.
Right.
Really doesn't seem to me to be saying, let's take this seriously, right? If a 30-day suspension to me is less than a Band-Aid. Right? If there's something serious, if this is a real deal, then we need to go much further. If it's not, then there's no reason to do anything, right? But 30 days doesn't satisfy anybody, and especially as came out yesterday that, we'll wait till after the spring season, so it would make sure that there's literally no effect of any kind, and Coach Davey will still be making many multiples of my salary for.
But on that note, the money.
He's losing more than the average New Mexicans, like
Right.
twice the average New Mexicans.
Fair point.
Yeah.
That's right. It's about 70 grand.
Yeah.
70 grand's no small amount of money. Unless you're making,
Unless you're making 800 or 900.
exactly
Yeah.
right. And Sophie, I'm interested in your opinion on again the little nuance here about what violates university policy or not, and under the idea of using racial slurs. And the university has said it did not violate university policy necessarily.
I think there's an interesting tension there. So just to sort of set that up a little bit more, Coach Davies is accused of using racial slurs in front of and toward players, potentially others. And while the university appears to be unhappy with that, what they've said essentially is, there isn't the violation of a specific policy. Now, one of the things we need to remember about universities is that the concept of free speech is really deeply ingrained in the university environment. However, the free speech ethos at universities is about professors' research, it's about the exchange of ideas, it's about not squashing academic opinion and academic debate. I'm not sure that it was originally, and perhaps even today, intended to mean football coaches can say whatever, they can talk whatever smack they want to their players. And so I think that there's a tension there that the university is dealing with right now.
Right. Especially with the football program, when you think about it. There's a lot of African-American players, of course, on the football program, Giovanna. And the idea that it's not a pass, certainly, and I'm sure the university's made it clear that we don't want you using the N-word to black players. I mean, obviously nobody would support that. But you've got parents out there. You've got, kids deciding to come to the program going, okay, hang on a second here. You know what I mean? No one really smacks down this guy for using the N-word to black players. You see what I mean? Yeah. It goes beyond just the legalities of it that Sophie's, talking about here.
Definitely. I mean, there's so much more to it than the policy.
Right.
Than whether or not you say the words, if the words come out of your mouth.
Right.
It's the whole, it's how this person is behaving towards these people.
Right.
And you can only suppress those words for so long, and then when you're under a stressful situation, they come out.
Right.
If you truly, believe that.
That's
so
right.
there's a deeper issue here. It's not
Right.
just about telling people not to say certain things. There's a much deeper issue that I think could be addressed, and that the president and the regents could bring up and need to bring up, frankly, in light of all of the other sexual harassment stuff that's going on. There's a great opportunity here to say, you know what, let's not just skim over this. Let's deal with this in a real way.
I like that.
Be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about it, Andy, once again, that heartburn about the football program. Coach Davey had an interesting quote here, said, if I got a month suspension, let's go coach this team. Do you know what I mean? There was something almost, I don't want to say it's flipped, but it doesn't sound very remorseful in a lot of ways.
No, I mean, something like that basically says, let's get it over with now so we can keep our training for the summer.
Right.
We'll start playing in the fall. And yeah, better get it over with now than put it off.
I should say he's going to have to go into some sensitivity training. That was part of it, and I'm sure that'll help a lot. But we'll see what happens. It's nothing like the letter of the law, however, to make behavior change. Now, when we come back to the line, we'll look at the rise in demand for medical marijuana.